Welcome back to Miles Reads. I'm Miles. Today, we're breaking down the wild saga of human evolution. Humans evolved from ancient apes to become the planet's dominant species. But how exactly did our bodies take on the form they have today? You may have read plenty of popular science books exploring the universe and the natural world. We are endlessly curious about the world outside ourselves. Yet, few books turn the lens inward to examine the evolutionary logic of the human body. This book does just that, showing us that every one of our organs is the product of countless rounds of natural selection. In a way, everything we do as humans is constrained by the limits of our physical form. The author, Jun, is a biologist with a PhD who has long been dedicated to science communication. He has a knack for explaining serious concepts from evolutionary theory and sociobiology with a light, humorous touch. The wild saga of human evolution is a masterpiece of popular science that makes profound knowledge accessible and easy to digest. Of course, the author readily admits that for many questions about the human body, there are no standard answers to this day. Different scientists have proposed theories that are sometimes completely at odds. But from a dialectical point of view, perhaps this is precisely where the charm and progress of science lie. With that overview, let's dive into the core content. Humans evolved from ancient apes, and the most fundamental difference between us is our ability to walk upright. So, our first key topic is, why did humans begin to walk upright? This change was followed by another, the loss of our thick body hair. To adapt, how did our skin evolve? Our second question explores this. Why do human skin tones vary between black, white, and yellow? Finally, the greatest difference between us and our ancestors is the evolution of our brains. So, is a bigger brain necessarily a smarter brain? This is the third question we will investigate. Let's start with the first question. What pressures forced our ancestors to stand up? For many years, a popular theory suggested that humans stood up to free our hands to make stone tools. However, this idea no longer holds water. Scientists discovered that humans began walking upright at least 1 million years before the first stone tools appeared. This means that for over 1 million years after freeing their hands, humans didn't manufacture any stone tools. Later, scholars proposed the energy conservation theory. In the harsh wilderness, even the slightest saving of energy meant a greater chance of survival. Scientists conducted an experiment where they had chimpanzees and humans wear oxygen consumption masks while on a treadmill. The results showed that humans used only 1/4 of the energy that chimps did. This means that to replenish the energy from a run, a chimp might need 4 bananas, while a human would only need 1. This efficiency allowed us to save more time and energy from foraging, which could then be used for raising offspring and learning skills. It also enabled us to venture further into the world. Ultimately, it was humans who conquered the planet, while chimpanzees remained confined to their habitats. Another theory suggests that walking upright made it easier to pick fruit from shrubs. But all these theories are debated. After all, if our ancient human ancestors, who were close relatives of chimpanzees and shared similar food sources, had such a clear evolutionary advantage in this natural buffet, why didn't they drive the chimps out? Why does it seem like our ancestors were the ones pushed out of the forest? Here, the author introduces the classic climate change theory. Humans originated in Africa, where ancient apes lived a carefree, tree-dwelling existence in the vast forests of East Africa. However, about 10 million years ago, tectonic activity tore the continent apart, forming the Great Rift Valley. West of the valley, the forests remained, and the lucky apes who stayed there continued their old way of life. Their descendants are today's gorillas and chimpanzees. East of the valley, however, the situation changed dramatically. Rainfall plummeted and the forests receded, leaving the tree-dwelling apes with no trees to climb and no way to cross the rift. They were forced down onto the ground. To see over the knee-high grass to find their way and spot predators, they had to stand up. This unintentional act brought an unexpected benefit: a wider field of vision, allowing them to spot danger, food, and companions more quickly. The author also notes that several interesting human postures are linked to walking upright. For example, clenched fists signal aggression, while pressing the palms together indicates that one is unarmed and has no hostile intent. This is why it's seen as a gesture of humility, often used when facing deities to show piety. Another example is placing hands on the hips, which makes the body appear wider and more intimidating, a pose often seen in old propaganda posters of leaders. However, because this gesture is so aggressive, modern leaders tend to clasp their hands behind their backs. This exposes vital areas like the chest and abdomen, which paradoxically signals the confidence that everything is under control. That covers the discussion on why humans walk upright. The classic theory attributes it to a choice made for survival amidst dramatic climate change. Next, let's explore our second question. Why do human skin colors vary so much? Is it as simple as it seems that skin is dark in Africa where the sun is strong, and light in high-latitude regions where it's weak? In the summer, we use sunscreen to block UV rays. Ultraviolet radiation can directly damage the DNA in our skin cells, and long-term exposure increases the risk of skin cancer. Given the intense sun in Africa, you might expect local populations to have higher rates of skin cancer. The answer is no, and the credit goes to their dark skin. Skin color comes from melanin produced by melanocytes. Melanin is excellent at absorbing UV radiation, thereby protecting our DNA. Interestingly, all humans have roughly the same number of melanocytes. The difference lies in the amount, size, and stability of the melanin granules. People of African descent have large, numerous, and stable melanin granules. In contrast, the granules in East Asians and Caucasians are smaller and break down easily. That's why even if you get a tan in the summer, your skin tone will likely return to its original shade by winter. This is the skin cancer theory, which aligns with popular intuition. In Africa, the birthplace of humanity, dark skin provided an effective shield against UV rays, lowering cancer risk and conferring a reproductive advantage. However, many scientists believe this isn't the primary reason. Skin cancer tends to develop slowly and late in life, meaning patients often have plenty of time to have children before it becomes fatal. If skin cancer wasn't the deadliest threat, what was? Scientists turned their attention to vitamin D. Vitamin D is crucial for absorbing calcium and building strong bones. A deficiency leads to rickets. While not fatal on its own, rickets has a cruel side effect. It can deform the pelvis in women, making childbirth impossible. This means individuals with rickets were highly unlikely to pass on their genes. The tricky part is that the human body can't synthesize enough vitamin D on its own, nor can we easily get enough from food. The best way to produce it is by exposing our skin to the sun, which uses UV rays to convert cholesterol into a precursor to vitamin D. At this point, you might be thinking, that doesn't add up. If we need sun to make vitamin D, why would Africans evolve dark skin that blocks UV rays? The problem, once again, is vitamin D. It's not a case of the more, the better. Excess vitamin D has to be filtered out by the kidneys, placing a huge strain on them. To avoid kidney damage, the body must regulate vitamin D production. Since avoiding the sun wasn't an option, the only solution was to evolve darker skin to block excess UV radiation. The global distribution of human skin color today is perfect proof of this theory. In Europe and near the polar regions, where sunlight is weakest, people generally have fair skin. To maximize sun absorption, their hair even evolved to be blonde, gray, or white, as lighter hair allows more sunlight to penetrate to the scalp and aid vitamin D synthesis. Conversely, the dark, curly hair of Africans acts as a barrier, blocking sunlight. The vitamin D theory also explains why women in all populations tend to have lighter skin than men. During pregnancy and lactation, women need to provide calcium for their children, increasing their demand for vitamin D. Lighter skin allows for more efficient UV absorption to meet this need. It could be argued that the ultimate reason for the male preference for fairer-skinned women is a preference for their ability to nurture offspring. This theory sounds airtight, but critics point out that if balancing vitamin D were the only factor, African skin could actually be a bit lighter than it is. So what else is at play? A clue emerged in a hospital in Argentina in 1996. A single healthcare worker was caring for 3 healthy pregnant women who, tragically, all gave birth to infants with neural tube defects. An investigation found only one thing in common. All 3 women had taken several long sunbaths during early pregnancy. How did the sun cause such a devastating outcome? The culprit was long-wave UVA radiation. It can penetrate the skin and reach the blood vessels, where it destroys a crucial substance, folate. Folate, or folic acid, is an essential ingredient for DNA synthesis and is vital for cell division. While abundant in foods like leafy greens and animal liver, it has a fatal flaw. It is easily broken down by UVA rays. For a fetus whose cells are rapidly dividing, a folate deficiency is catastrophic and can lead to developmental deformities. It affects men as well. Insufficient folate can reduce sperm count and quality. Therefore, to protect folate from being destroyed by UV radiation, the skin needed to be sufficiently dark. Now the picture becomes clearer. The human body needs to be light enough to synthesize adequate vitamin D, while also being dark enough to protect its folate. In every corner of the globe, different populations have been constantly seeking a skin tone that strikes the perfect balance between these two needs. Of course, this theory isn't the final word. Others, like the sexual selection theory, have been proposed as well. The author suggests that the pursuit of a single correct answer may itself be a flawed goal. When faced with complex phenomena, a single theory is often insufficient. We need to learn to synthesize multiple perspectives. Finally, let's tackle our third question. Does a bigger brain make you smarter? The evolution of the human brain is nothing short of a miracle. It's easy to assume that a bigger head means a bigger brain, and thus more intelligence. Cranial capacity is the key metric here. The data shows that after humans began walking upright, our brain volume doubled. Compared to a chimpanzee of similar body weight, our brain, at about 1,400 milliliters, is more than 3 times larger. Among mammals of the same body size, the human brain is about 7 times larger than that of other species. The relative size of our brain is indeed one reason humans are more intelligent. But does this mean bigger is always better? If so, why wouldn't all animals just evolve massive heads? The truth is, a bigger brain comes at a higher cost. Scientists ran an experiment with guppies. Through artificial selection, they bred a line of guppies with larger brains. They found that these smarter fish also had shorter intestines, and the reduction in gut size was proportionally much greater than the increase in brain size. This hindered their ability to absorb nutrients, and they ultimately produced far fewer offspring. This demonstrates that simply increasing brain size can lead to the decline of an entire population. Herbivores often have very long intestines to digest plant fibers. Human intestines, by contrast, are significantly shorter. Fortunately, we became smart enough to learn to eat cooked food and meat, which are easier to digest and more nutrient-rich, saving us from malnutrition. You could say that an animal's brain size is the result of a balance struck between nutrition and intelligence. So, when comparing one person to another, does head size matter? The author argues that intelligence can't be measured so simply. One startling discovery is that our brains are slowly getting smaller. Compared to our ancestors from 20,000 years ago, the average human brain has shrunk by about the volume of 2 chicken eggs. Are we getting dumber? Not at all. A smaller brain doesn't mean less intelligence, it reflects a change in our knowledge structure. For example, children in some indigenous tribes learn to identify hundreds of medicinal plants from a young age, while many of us in modern society can't tell wheat from barley. Consider the chickadee, whose brain changes with the seasons. In the fall, its brain grows larger to help it remember the locations of its food caches in the spring. When food is plentiful, its brain shrinks accordingly. Research confirms that not all parts of our brain are shrinking in unison. Areas related to language and attention have actually grown significantly. The changes in our brain are simply trade-offs between different functions. After all, an office worker sitting at a desk all day has no need to develop the skills required to fight off hyenas and tigers. The same logic applies between individuals. Men generally have larger heads than women, but this is merely a reflection of differences in body size. With the same level of education, women are every bit as intelligent. There are, of course, structural differences in intelligence. Men may have an edge in areas like spatial reasoning, as seen in games like chess, while women often excel in verbal abilities. Smart, therefore, is difficult to define, because no single brain can master every domain. Alright, that's all for today. Let's do a quick recap. We've explored 3 fascinating questions. First, why did humans start walking upright? The classic climate change theory suggests it was a necessary adaptation to a changing environment. Second, why do human skin colors differ? The combined vitamin D and folate theory tells us it's a delicate balance between synthesizing vitamin D and protecting folate. Third, is a bigger brain smarter? The answer is no. Brain size is a trade-off between nutrition and intelligence intelligence itself is a multidimensional concept. For many of these questions, this book presents multiple explanations. Each theory seems plausible, yet none is completely perfect. You might be tempted to ask, is there a single true answer? As the author says, the search for absolute truth might be a fool's errand. Human evolution is a long, complex process of negotiation between humans and their environment, and between the body's different organs. Faced with such a complex system, any single theory is bound to be incomplete. We must learn to piece together a more complete picture from multiple perspectives. That's all for this installment. Congratulations, you've just finished another book.